Hello, it is Wednesday, November the 7th, the year 2012, and before we get to any sports talk, the last time I was on was October 29th. Hurricane Sandy was hitting the New York metropolitan area where I am from. It hit us really, really hard. I've had no power for a week. I'm just getting back up. People across the street from me don't have power. I know a lot of you out there still don't have power. The gas lines are long. There was so much damage to so many communities like Long Beach and the Jersey Shore, Long Island, Staten Island, Lower Manhattan, up and down the coast of the Northeast. I mean, this storm was really, really brutal, and it hit us really, really hard. Like I said, I'm just getting power right now. I know people that still don't have power or hot water, plus the temperatures are dropping. So you guys, we're thinking about you. Hang in there. I know these communities are going to bounce back. The people are too tough. They will bounce back. So you guys, hang in there. We're thinking about you. And don't get down. Things are going to improve. So please, hang in there. We're thinking about you. Our thoughts go out to everyone that was touched by this storm. It was a horrible one. And as I look outside, we're going through a nor'easter right now. So hopefully we don't get any more damage on top of the damage we already had. There looks like some bad rain and wind out there right now. So I'm thinking about all you guys out there. Everyone, please stay safe in this storm. And I hope everyone improves and gets back to their lives very, very quickly. I'm thinking about everyone that lost someone in this storm, everyone that lost homes in this storm, everyone that lost electricity. You guys, hang in there. I know you guys are going to bounce back. All right, as far as the election, President Obama gets reelected last night. He wins the electoral votes. He slightly wins in the popular vote. So President Obama gets 4 more years. You know, it's funny looking at this election. It didn't change much from the last election. The only 2 states that changed were Indiana and North Carolina. Last time Obama got those states. This year he didn't get those states. But pretty much he got every other state that he got the last time he won. You know, they got to do a better job in Florida with the counting of these votes. Florida, as of right now, is still undecided. You know, it's not going to mean anything either way. The election is already decided. But, I mean, here we are the next day, and we still don't know who won Florida. I mean, this happened before, too, with Bush and Gore and that whole fiasco. So Florida's got to do a better job with this whole voting thing. We can't be, you know, if this state was deciding the election, here we are the next day, we wouldn't have known who won. So they got to do a better job with that. They got to do a better job with the lines for voting. I mean, I know people that stood on line 4 hours to vote, so they got to do a better job with that. So a couple things I didn't like about the whole. And another thing, by the time Obama made his victory speech last night on the East Coast, it was 2 a.m. I mean, that's really, really late for these, you know, acceptance speeches. 2 a.m. on the East Coast, really, really too late. I don't know how you avoid that by the time they count all these and Romney concedes and all that. I want to say this. No one is a loser today. I know people had their choice of who they want to win. We're all American. We are all American. It's a great day for the United States. I loved seeing all those flags out there, both parties waving their flags. It was great to see. We are all American. There is no losing in this, and I hope we all support the president, no matter what side you're on, because we are all American. Greatest country in the world. So you guys support the president no matter what side you on. And believe me, I know there's a lot of differences. The country right now is divided. If you look at the country and you look at who voted where, the whole West Coast, kind of up and down that West Coast there, is kind of Democratic. The whole Northeast is kind of Democratic. The Midwest and the South, predominantly, you know, Republican. So the country is very divided on, you know, where you are. So it's, you know, President Obama's going to have a tough time getting everyone on the same page because the country is so divided. So I hope we do support the president. The House of Representatives, that is controlled by the Republicans. The Senate, that is controlled by the Democrats. So we'll see how all this goes. So remember, there was no losers last night. We are all American, greatest country in the world. So that wraps up that. Let's get into a little sports. I'm going to touch on the college football today. Tomorrow I'm going to go through all the NFL picks with you. I'm going to go through all the games this week, and I'm going to go through all the games that we missed last week. Last week in the NFL, most of the favorites won. Only a couple of the underdogs won, like the Steelers, and that wasn't a big upset. Or, the Colts beating the Dolphins, that wasn't a big upset either. Maybe like Carolina beating Washington, and that wasn't a big upset either. For the most part, most of the favorites held true to form and they won. So we'll get into that tomorrow. I'll also do all my NFL picks for Sunday. Let's get into the college football a little bit here. Let's recap what happened over the weekend. Notre Dame stays undefeated. They beat Pittsburgh 29-26 in 3 overtimes. A game Pittsburgh has got to be kicking themselves over for losing. Pittsburgh had a chance to win the game with a field goal. They miss it. Notre Dame escapes again. It's funny, Notre Dame has been doing a lot of Houdini acts this year, but you got to give them credit. They keep finding ways to win. I mean, Notre Dame fumbles going into the end zone. They throw a big interception in the end zone. You think this is not going to be their day, and sure enough, they find a way to win. Pitt misses the field goal, and Notre Dame escapes again. They drop in the polls a little bit, but they stay undefeated, and that's the most important thing right now. You want to stay undefeated and let the polls work themselves out as the season goes on. But Notre Dame stays undefeated. They beat Pitt 29-26. As far as the other big games from last week, Kansas State, they also stay undefeated. They beat Oklahoma State 44-30. Klein, the quarterback, hurt. They said he possibly had a concussion. Looks like he's going to play this week, so no problem there. Kansas State stays undefeated. Oregon puts up 62 against USC in the Coliseum. Oregon 62, USC 51. Very disappointing year for USC, 6-3. I mean, Matt Barkley comes back and he thinks he's going to have a chance at the national championship, and they already have 3 losses, and they can lose more. They still have to play Notre Dame. Who knows? They could have 4 or 5 losses by the time this season is over. So very disappointing year for USC. Oregon, as usual, unstoppable on offense. Can their defense do enough, to win? Let's say they get in the national championship game. So, you have 5 undefeateds here. Let's put Louisville aside for now because they're not going to make the national title game. So you got 4 teams, really, that can make this national championship, game. You got Oregon, of course, who's undefeated. You got Kansas State. You got Notre Dame. You got Alabama, of course. Alabama with the huge win at Death Valley LSU. Alabama 21. LSU 17. Alabama rallies late. McCarron leads them down the field, with less than a minute to go. Mettenberger plays well for LSU. Miles with a lot of questionable calls for LSU. The fake field goal I didn't like. The long field goal I didn't like. I thought he was very conservative on offense on that last possession, when they missed the field goal there. I thought they were conservative on defense for the most part when Alabama had the ball on their last possession. So LSU, you kind of feel like you let Alabama off the hook. So huge win for Alabama. And like I said, the 4 undefeateds, Alabama, Oregon, Notre Dame, and Kansas State, putting Louisville aside. Out of those 4 teams, you're going to get 2 teams to play for the national championship. Too bad we don't have the 4-team playoff this year. That would work out perfectly if they stayed undefeated. But, of course, we have to wait 2 years for that. So we'll see how that all plays out with those 4 teams. But those are the 4 teams to really zero in on. As far as this week in college football, not a great week in college football at all. I mean, I'll go through some of the games with you now. I mean, Louisville, -2 over Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. Louisville's 9-0. They're ranked 10. Syracuse 4-5. I like Louisville in this game. I mean, I don't think Syracuse is that great. I would expect Louisville to handle business here. Thursday night, you have number 10 Florida State at Virginia Tech. Florida State 8-1. Virginia Tech, a very disappointing 4-5. When have you ever seen Virginia Tech at 4-5? I mean, I can't remember the last time Frank Beamer had a team that was this bad. So very disappointing for Virginia Tech. Maybe they show some life here. I doubt it. I think Florida State will bury them on Thursday night. Over the weekend, you have Arkansas at number 8 South Carolina. Arkansas, a very disappointing 4-5. South Carolina 7-2. I mean, you expect South Carolina to win at home there. You got number 11 Oregon State at 7-1. At number 14 Stanford 7-2. Nice game, decent game. That's also an interesting game to keep an eye on because Oregon would like, Oregon State to win. So when Oregon plays Oregon State, and if they beat them, they would get extra points in the polls. So Oregon is rooting for Oregon State to keep winning. So, to go up in the polls to boost their poll situation. So interesting game as far as that standpoint. I guess the big game of the week, number 15 Texas A&M, they're 7-2 at number 1 Alabama, who's 9-0. Do I think Texas A&M can win in Alabama and Tuscaloosa? No. I mean, is it the best game of the week? Yeah, probably, but it's not a great week in college football. You worried about Alabama off the huge emotional high last week against LSU. Can they, rebound and play a good game against Texas A&M? I don't think Texas A&M has the defense to win this game on the road, so I like Alabama here. Number 2, Kansas State, who's 9-0. They go to TCU. TCU 6-3. TCU did have a really, really nice win last week against West Virginia. West Virginia's been disappointing this year. They have 3 losses. But TCU in the second overtime went for 2 and beat West Virginia. So that was a gutsy call by TCU. Nice win for them. They're 6-3. I don't think they can beat Kansas State, even though the game is at TCU. But you want to keep an eye on that game. Number 5, Georgia. They're 8-1. They're at Auburn. Auburn just dreadful this year, 2-7. I don't expect much from this game. It's funny looking at Georgia at number 5. I never thought Georgia was all that great this year. I mean, they have one signature win. It was a nice win over Florida, a game Florida basically handed to Georgia with all the turnovers. But I still have in my mind that Georgia was a complete disaster at South Carolina when they just got destroyed at South Carolina. I can't get that out of my head. So when I look at them ranked number 5, I'm like, is Georgia really that good? I don't know if they're that good, but they still are number 5. They control their own destiny in the SEC East, so they could make the title game in the SEC, so you got to keep an eye on Georgia. Expect them to lay the wood on Auburn. Auburn is just awful this year, 2-7. I mean, a complete disaster. Number 3, Oregon, who's 9-0, at Cal, who's 3-7. I mean, another game. I mean, Oregon should put up 50-plus in this game. Cal's been awful this year. Not much going on in that game. Number 4, Notre Dame at 9-0 at BC. I mean, Boston College, not a good game. Believe it or not, this is the primetime ABC game. Who would ever think Boston College at 2-7 would be the primetime ABC game Saturday night at 8 o'clock? I mean, my goodness, that shows you how weak the college football schedule is this weekend. I mean, so Notre Dame should beat Boston College, no problem there. Mississippi State, who's ranked 21, they're 7-2. They're at LSU, who's ranked 7. They're also 7-2. I mean, Mississippi State now, they've gotten into the meat of their schedule. You see, they're losing. They haven't beaten a good team all year. LSU 7-2. They are ranked 7. They've lost 2 tough games to Alabama and Florida, but they're kind of out of the national title picture. But you want to keep an eye on that game. I mean, it is a decent game, I guess. Then you got Louisiana Lafayette at 5-3 at number 6 Florida, who's 8-1. Again, I mean, do you really think Louisiana Lafayette is going to be any threat to Florida? So not much going on there. Ohio State is off. They are on probation, so they can't be ranked this year. They can't go to a bowl game. They are 10-0. They have this week off. You want to keep an eye on them to see if they do go undefeated. They do play at Wisconsin at home for Michigan the last 2 weeks. You want to keep an eye on that. One other team I want to mention, UCLA. 7-2. What a nice job by UCLA. They play at Washington State this week. They should win that game, go to 8-2. Very nice job by UCLA this year. I mean, tremendous job. And it's funny, you look at UCLA, they have 2 losses. One to Oregon State. Okay, no problem. Oregon State's a really good team. Only 1 loss, ranked 11. UCLA lost to Cal this year, and they lost 43-17 to Cal. And you look at the records, UCLA is 7-2, and Cal is, 3-7? You look back and you say, how in the world did that happen? And Cal, won that game 43-17. That's one of those head scratches when you look back on the season. You're like, how in the world did that happen? Not only did Cal beat UCLA, they beat them badly. So that's a head scratcher there, but overall, nice job by UCLA. So like I said, not a great week in college football. I mean, to me, the best game is A&M at Alabama, and there's not much after that. You want to say Kansas State at TCU, okay, but a lot of these games, I mean, the big teams that are ranked should win and should win comfortably. Not a great week in college football. Okay, so I am going to be with you tomorrow, Thursday. We're going to go over all the NFL. I'm going to break down all the games, game by game, all the picks. We'll touch on last week. Like I said, most of the favorites won last week. Not a lot of surprises last week. Also, I know NBA fans, I promised you, we're going to get into the NBA. The NBA is a long season. It goes on forever. I mean, I know the Knicks are off to a hot start, and the Lakers aren't, and some other interesting stories around the league. A lot of injuries around the league, too. A lot of big players hurt and, missing a lot of time. We're going to get into the NBA. I promise you that. We have plenty of time to do that. But tomorrow, NFL wall-to-wall picks, we'll go over all that, and we'll start to get on a regular schedule. Next week, I'll do my regular Monday to Thursday schedule with you. And like I said, you guys stay safe. Anyone affected by the hurricane, we're thinking about you. I hope this nor'easter we have right now is not going to be anything but a little rain and a little wind and no damage at all. Anyone that lost homes, we're thinking about you. Anyone that lost loved ones, we're thinking about you. Anyone that was touched by this storm, we're thinking about you. And as far as the presidency, I know people had their choice. We're all Americans. There was no losers last night. We're all Americans in this great country. So you guys stay safe. Enjoy the games tonight, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.